Hello and welcome to the Raw review here on Wrestling with Regret. But before we go on to the topic of the show that happened on Monday night, we must address the big story that dropped on Monday morning, how the WWE Network is migrating soon to Peacock, which is NBC Universal's big streaming service. Basically, if you're already a network subscriber, you're going to be trading that in for a subscription to Peacock, which will include the network and all the live pay-per-views for about half the price. Starts on March 18th, and the first pay-per-view to be airing under this new format is going to be Fastlane. This deal is reportedly $1 billion over 5 years. All I can ask myself is, how? How does this company continue to make money? I guess if anything, it's another important piece of evidence that shows that maybe in today's age, TV ratings aren't as important as they were 20 years ago. The fact that the company managed to make all these billion-dollar deals over the years in spite of their shit ratings, sad but true, shows that. And I know that's not an excuse for the terrible ratings and the terrible quality of their programming on the whole. Some things are exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, the product in general is not great. And all these big financial incentives they're getting for what they're currently churning out doesn't appear to be any kind of motivation for them to do better. So I know that's a big elephant in the room. But that whole issue aside, because that is its own problem that needs to be addressed, I think looking at the deal itself is a win-win. If you're a network subscriber like me, you're basically going to be getting 2 streaming services for the price of 1 now, consolidating that stuff. And even if you don't think right now you're going to need or want that content from NBC Universal and Peacock, you can at least take comfort in knowing that it's there. There are some people out there who are complaining about the setup of, I don't want to have to scroll through sitcoms to get to my wrestling, which sounds like the most bullshit made-up complaint I've ever heard for anything. Honestly, we scroll through so many menus on our devices to get to the content that we want to get to anyway on a daily basis. Is one more menu, is one more hurdle, one more step really going to kill you? Is it really going to make you pissy to have to scroll past some Seinfeld thumbnail to go to a menu with a Fiend's face plastered all over it? And with Peacock's subscriber base of 26 million as opposed to the networks of 1 million and change, obviously the number of potential eyeballs, and the key word there is potential, on the product and on their back catalog and other pay-per-views is going to be far more vast than what the network currently provides. Like I said, the current product is not that great. So the idea of trying to hook fans in with what they're currently dishing out is kind of far-fetched. But I'm sure there's lots of wrestling fans out there that didn't watch the best and the brightest of wrestling that got them hooked, and they're fans today, so anything's possible. But those are just my thoughts, folks. What do you think about the big news surrounding the network and Peacock? Let me know in the comments section below. Moving on to Raw proper now, with the show opening with the return of its champion, Drew McIntyre, back from his 2-week quarantine. He's in the ring and he thanks the fans for all their well wishes during this time, talks about the symptoms he felt while he was in quarantine and how fast he got back into training. He wants to dedicate his match at the Rumble to those who've been impacted by COVID. He then talks about Goldberg, runs down his history, and says that every champion that Goldberg's challenged since coming back to the company, he has beaten for their championship, but he is going to break that new streak on Sunday, is Drew. The Miz and Morrison interrupt. They make a Kong versus Godzilla reference, and they plainly give away their strategy for what's going to happen on Sunday, where they hope to capitalize on a potential injury and cash in for Miz to win the championship. Then Goldberg appears. We have the much hyped and ballyhooed face-off between the two of these guys, and so we're having it here. Man of few words, as Goldberg basically says, Sunday, you're next, and they have a stare down. The Miz and Morrison are egging those two guys on to fight each other, but those two guys aren't having it. They bring them into the ring, and we get a spear on Miz and a Claymore to Morrison, another stare down between Drew and Goldberg. You know, I think it was a fine segment for what it was. Drew coming back, saying his piece, and then, we've got, Goldberg coming in, and then we see the wild card of Miz and Morrison. I think it's too obvious they're going to come and do something like after the match. I mean, it's too blatantly obvious, it feels like to me. But you know what? I was proven wrong about that at TLC, so we'll see what happens at the Rumble. We see Charlotte Flair backstage, and she has a lot to say. She announces that she and Asuka are defending the tag titles on Sunday. Against whom, you may ask? I bet they'd love to know as well. She talks about how, she always works well under pressure. That's why they call her Miss WrestleMania. And in regards to her dad, Lacey Evans, she says that is now the darkest period of Ric Flair's life. Really? We then go to the first time ever matchup between Charlotte Flair and Shayna Baszler. The match goes absolutely nowhere though until Nia Jax interferes. The match is thrown out. Suddenly out come Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose and then Lacey Evans. And you know where this is going. It's a tag team match, playa. So the match carries on. Baszler and Flair fighting on the outside, taking their sweet ass time out there to the point where Baszler gets counted out. She doesn't get back in the ring in time and says, oh, she got counted out. Match is over. Wow, what a boneheaded mistake that was. But you know what? Considering the just complete lazy way they set that match up, I guess they get what they deserve. But wait, because after the commercial break, we find out the match has been restarted because they got to fill their time somewhere. And Pearce goes, no, let them fight. Let them fight after all. I couldn't believe it. Own your shit, folks. That was kind of a weak way to restart it. So the match goes on. Charlotte chases Lacey out of the ring, out of the arena, I should say. Nia destroys Dana Brooke with a big slam, and ultimately to win for her team. And there you go. I mean, I was not too fond of this match to begin with, but then when they had the count out and they restarted it because they fucked up, like that was pretty bad, guys. Mustafa Ali with a pre-tape promo on the New Day, and while he's targeting them, he says that Kofi Mania happened at his expense 2 years ago, and now he wants some synonym for revenge or vengeance. Anyway, Slapjack takes on Xavier Woods next. Good little match. They tried these same distraction shenanigans from last week, but they don't work. Xavier hits the Shining Wizard on old Slappy Jack to win the match, but then right afterward, Retribution destroy him. Mace and T-Bar with a big double choke slam. Mustafa's got a chair. He looks to go hit it, Xavier with it, but instead he puts it down and sits on it backwards style like a cool high school counselor. He tells Xavier to send a message to Kofi that, since Kofi is injured and won't be able to be in the Rumble match, his replacement is Mustafa Ali. Ooh, what a turn of events. Backstage, Riddle runs into RTruth, who says he's heard through the grapevine the Hurt Business have a surprise party planned for his belated birthday, and that gives Riddle a half-baked idea. We go on out of the VIP lounge. Shelton Benjamin comes out wearing a mask, and he takes it off and goes, shit, he must have forgot to take it off before he went through the curtain. Everyone gets a turn to speak, but Cedric once again interrupts Shelton. The boys give MVP a gift. It's a custom piece of jewelry with the initials THB on it for the Hurt Business. RTruth shows up, and MVP is wanting to know why. Truth thinks the necklace stands for Truth, Happy Birthday, which I really popped for. Suddenly out come the gaggle of jobbers chasing Truth for the 24/7 title, which includes a rare Tucker sighting. I haven't seen him what feels like forever. Amidst the chaos, Riddle runs in the ring and hits MVP with a big knee attack and then scampers off. The segment had some funny moments here, gives a little build to the gauntlet match we're going to get later on with the Hurt Business and Riddle. I'd call it a positive moment. And then backstage after the break, Adam Pearce runs into RTruth, who's apparently escaped all his pursuers, and Truth says he wants to prove himself worthy of being in the Rumble match. When AJ Styles and Omos come in, and AJ says he wants to be benevolent and give Truth a shot to prove his worthiness, and so Pearce makes a match, and then Truth does some stuff where he's kind of like annoying Styles, getting the astrological signs confused, saying, oh, you're benevolent, I'm a Capricorn, Omos, are you a Taurus? Goes into a rant about he and Road Dogg, their Taurus breaking down one time on the road. I mean, God, RTruth is just a treasure. Sheamus takes on John Morrison next. It's a good back and forth match here. Sheamus is getting his leg worked over for a while, but he ultimately wins with white noise. Then suddenly Miz immediately challenges him to a handicap match on the spot, which Sheamus accepts. And this is a really competitive handicap match as well. Sheamus putting a valiant effort here, able to withstand a lot of the assault from his two opponents until Miz finally hits the skull-crushing finale after a lot of work. Sheamus is dodging a lot of moves until he's ultimately caught slipping, and that causes Miz and Morrison to win their match. And even in defeat, Sheamus looks brilliant in these two matches back to back, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see how he fares in the Rumble match. Backstage, Charlotte catching Papa Rick in the act of showing Lacey Evans some moves in a mildly suggestive way. Rick stands up for himself to his daughter, saying that just because you're a big star doesn't mean there isn't a place for me here in the dressing room, and if somebody wants to learn from me and learn some moves, so be it. Charlotte then begins to chew out her dad, saying, oh, you used to spend all your money on everyone but your family, all these dalliances, used to be cute when I was younger, but now you're going from legend to old man. And for the last couple of years, it feels like Ric Flair is just brought back on TV specifically because he get dumped on by everyone on the roster. As Charlotte begins to leave, though, she walks right into a woman's right from Lacey, and she and Rick scamper off together. This storyline is something else, man. Like, I can get it on one level. I think it's kind of an interesting angle, but who's the face here? Because Lacey is clearly the heel, going after Rick and getting in Charlotte's head, but Charlotte is also not a good face, and here she's just been healing on her dad repeatedly since he's been back and they've been doing doing this angle. So who are we meant to root for exactly? AJ Styles and RTruth in singles action up next. Lots of symbolic over-the-top rope throwing here because we are close to the Rumble match. We had a long, strange moment near the end where Truth is like kind of hanging partway over the apron on this very tight shot on him, looks up and sees Omos, and we get this very low shot to really accentuate the height and everything, which is like fine, but I felt that they held on the shot for a really long time. It didn't really go anywhere, and you didn't have to block it that way to make it look as awkward as it did. So Truth gets back in the ring, the AA attempt is thwarted, Styles wins with the calf crusher, and that's pretty much that. We get a recap of the Orton mask promo, which includes some clips of him getting his face hit with the fireball from 2 weeks ago, and then we go right to an Alexa Bliss promo in her playground, which also features the fireball spot from 2 weeks ago. You didn't need those two back to back. And then we see Alexa talking to her invisible fiend friend of the swing, and we get a recap of the Asuka match from last week on an old analog TV, which is kind of cool to see. She says she has a chance to win a new shiny toy this week, and like last time, she won't play nice. We get some fiend face splicing over her face at the end. Some weird, wild stuff. I thought the promo itself here was fine, but putting this right back to back with Randy Orton recap and having so much of the same footage seemed really redundant. It's time for a gauntlet match as Riddle takes on the Hurt Business, and should Riddle win, he'll be able to face Bobby Lashley for the US title some point in the future. First up is against Shelton Benjamin. They have some good back and forth, but Cedric Alexander pipes up at the exact wrong moment. That costs Shelton his part of the match. So after the roll-up victory for Riddle there, MVP tries to stop the infighting between the Raw Tag Champs, and suddenly Riddle's got him at a heel hook, and MVP taps out immediately. So now we're down to Riddle and Cedric. The other two guys are on the outside looking really peeved. This part of the match is great here between these two guys. Cedric looks really good here, but ultimately Riddle ends up pinning him, and so Riddle wins the whole shebang. He's going to face Lashley in the future, but speaking of which, Lashley attacks him on the ramp, puts him in the Hurt Lock for a good long while. I think it was a good match. I think Riddle showcased himself very well, and Cedric especially looked good here. Riddle versus Lashley at some point in the future should be good. We then get the return of Edge. We've not seen him on TV since after the greatest wrestling match ever at Backlash, where he lost to Orton and tore his tricep in the process. In this promo, this pre-tape promo, he talks about how he retired 10 years ago and how hard he fought back to get back into the ring, only to have it taken away from him last year. And you can't live in that headspace forever. You have to keep moving forward. So he's announcing he's going to be in the Rumble match on Sunday, which I'm very excited to hear. It's a different kind of surprise as opposed to last year. And with him being in the match now, I mean, the possibilities of who could possibly win the Rumble match, it's getting more and more complex every week, it feels like. And I'm very excited about where that Rumble match is going to go. Your main events for the Raw Women's Championship as Alexa Bliss challenges Asuka. Now last week, Alexa turned on God mode and handily beat the champion in a non-title match, so will lightning strike twice? The match begins at one point before the break. Alexa ejects Asuka from the ring, and suddenly there's a damn rocking horse in there, and then it's gone by the end of the commercial break. Oh well, that was something. Asuka with a big run on Alexa here, who suddenly transforms back to her old gimmick, pre-Fiend days, and she seems to be in tears, but she fakes out Asuka and transforms again into her indestructible Fiend mode. She fights out of the Asuka lock and puts on the mandible claw when suddenly Randy Orton shows up. He's not wearing the mask anymore, but his face is extra crispy. Alexa turns around and she takes an RKO from Orton. That's going to be the first RKO on a lady we've seen since Beth Phoenix last year, pre-pandemic, as we fade to black. Interesting way to close out the show. Basically, now we know that Alexa can just kind of take the championship at will when she's in the Fiend mode. It's seemingly a matter of when. Orton fires another shot at the Fiend, and you wonder how that's going to impact his run in the Rumble match on Sunday. And apparently, who gives a shit that Asuka's one half of the tag champions and she's defending her title on Sunday? I mentioned last week how I felt it was kind of premature to have Alexa take on Asuka and be so dominant when she is a double champion. Like I said, you could have put her against any other woman and just shown, oh, she's to be taken seriously, she's crazy and she can transform now. Maybe this would be the week to have like that first match under this premise with Asuka and then have Orton interfere. So you don't have to have the double champion lose like this. And again, you've got Asuka doing this one thing with Alexa Bliss. You have Charlotte doing something with Lacey Evans and Ric Flair. Does anyone care they're tag champions? It's got to be a foregone conclusion they're losing the belts on Sunday, right? My grade for this week's Raw is a C+. I was going to give it a B-, but then the whole opening match with the women's match turning into a 6-woman tag and then ending early because of the count-out fuck up and then they restart the match, that whole thing was a bunch of bullshit. But then after that train wreck, I think they recovered nicely and were able to get into a pretty decent groove. A couple of standout performances from guys like RTruth on a humor level and then Sheamus on an in-ring level that I really enjoyed. The Gauntlet match was good. Edge's announcement was pretty cool to see. And Bliss versus Asuka, even though I hate what they're doing with the women's tag team champions and how the belts are a non-factor in their individual storylines, I think that the match itself and the segment and the way they went about it, I thought that was good as well. But what did you all think of Raw this week? Let me know in the comment section below. Stay tuned because this Wednesday's classic review is going to be the 2010 Royal Rumble, and later this week you'll see me and Jay Biggs giving our predictions on this weekend's event. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.